Go ahead and call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Dan Bale,
Here.
Brian Hurley,
Yeah.
Brianne Schneckenberger,
Here.
Kevin Dayhoff,
Here.
and Grant Adams.
Here.
I'd like to advise that all testimony is being recorded. All persons speaking will be asked to give their name for the record and to spell their last name so that the minutes are accurate. Please turn off all of your cell phones. The order of those which would be speaking tonight would be that of the petitioner to have the first 10 minutes in which to make his or her presentation, followed by 10 minutes for all remonstrators to speak, 5 minutes for any government officials who wish to address the issues, and then 5 minutes for rebuttal by the petitioner. Our attorney will give each side a 2-minute and 1-minute warning as time is expiring. We ask that all persons conduct themselves in a civil manner and reserve the right to request those who are disruptive to leave. Looks like the first item on the agenda is oaths of office and election of officers.
Yes.
Who all is doing oaths of office?
Kevin and Grant are. They don't need to do anything publicly. It's just something they need to sign.
Okay.
So really the key is election of officers for this year.
I'll make a motion to retain the current slate of officers.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Who is this vice president? Actually,
I
was
think
Justin?
he's the one that left, didn't he?
Yeah.
Justin.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
So I withdraw my motion.
Sorry, Dana.
Try again.
So we need a new vice
I think the
president?
guy that called
We'll
you
do a
out should be the one
president.
to be vice president,
Yeah.
right?
I'll do president first.
Sure.
I'll make a motion Brianne Schneckenberger be president.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Do we have a motion for vice president? Nobody wants to volunteer?
I'll make a motion Brian Hurley be vice president.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Ryan, do we have any agenda considerations?
None tonight.
Okay. Looks like the next item is the approval of the December 2024 minutes. If you guys have had enough time to look over the minutes and don't have any changes, I will entertain a motion.
The only question I have is roll call members present. My name is twice. I didn't know Brian wasn't here, so was the other one there.
Justin.
But if I get paid twice for being on there twice, hey, I'll take it.
I want to say Justin was here.
But that's the only thing I saw.
I think it was Justin instead of Grant being
Yeah,
here
Grant,
twice. I think
yeah.
Justin was here.
I think you're correct. We'll
Okay.
make sure we make that edit and then
With that being said, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as they,
I have,
with
a,
that change.
I have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
so Kevin abstained.
Yep. All right. Do we have any old business?
None.
Okay. So for news business, it looks like our first item on tonight's agenda is BZA 25001 for Trex Barbecue.
All right, so I will give, as usual, a really brief presentation, laying out kind of just the nuts and bolts of each application, then we'll turn it over to our petitioners. So first up, Trax Barbecue is looking to go to 6314 West Broadway. This is better known as the GT's building primarily. And as you can see by the yellow highlight, they are also in the process of acquiring, along with that main property, some of the next door property, which will be consumed with some additional parking, which petitioner will talk you through all that. Here is their proposed site plan. Again, they're requesting a special exception for the restaurant use, or the land use, eat-in restaurant, and then a number of variances all related to the site, primarily parking related. Staff report laid those out. I will say there was a couple edits that we've made, and we'll talk through that as we kind of go through the course of the petition tonight. But again, one special exception for the land use of an eat-in restaurant, and then 6 or 7 variances for the site, mostly related to parking and/or setbacks of said parking. So special exception criteria, this is not statutory, it's local ordinance criteria for our special exception. And then we have the statutory criteria for development standards variances. Staff has ran all variance requests as well as special exception requests through all the criteria. And we have made a summary finding that we support the special exception and all the variances contingent upon a number of conditions of approval. I'm not going to read through all those right now. I'll let the petitioner come up and be able to make their presentation, but we will read through these later on. And then the two highlighted ones at the bottom are newer since Friday, as we've kind of dug in a little bit more on the parking and the land use. So with that said, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to our petitioners to come up to the podium up there, introduce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Good evening. Good evening. All right. So, good evening, everybody. I am Whitney Klein, K-L-E-I-N, and this is my husband, Andrew.
Andrew Klein, K-L-E-I-N.
And we own Trax Barbecue here in McCordsville. So tonight we are here because we are, like he said, seeking a special exception for the property located at 6314 West Broadway. It's currently offices, and we are seeking to put a restaurant in there. So we've been working with an architect to come up with floor plans for that. So I think that we've come up with a pretty adequate floor plan. I don't know if that's just so you guys can get an idea of kind of what our plans would be for that. So it's 3 levels. The basement would be our prep area plus storage, dry storage, dish. Deliveries would get brought down to the, yeah, thank you.
That's this one, right?
Yep.
If
So,
you want me, I can go through that.
okay, yeah, if you want
All right, so the first floor, what we will be doing is doing this in 2 phases for the building. First and second floor, well, basement and main level would be phase 1. So commissary first floor, basement level. This will be for our main prep, catering, sauce making, rubs. You know, not a whole lot of crew down there, but our meat fabrication would be in our walk-in cooler here, and then some other storage here. Dish area, we have our main stairs going up and out. We have a delivery door here, and then we have a secondary egress going directly out of the building towards the back. We also have a lift that will help us carry product from basement level to the first level. Phase 1. Also phase 1 would be our main level here, which would be main dining, main cooking, and all that stuff. So we went on a kind of company field trip, if you will, to Texas to kind of check out 8 different barbecue restaurants. We put in a lot of time and effort into designing this place. A lot of you have been to our restaurant now. It's defunct. We started as a small little place and just kind of grew. So we tried to look at it as a consumer point of view as you walk from the front door, how you get through to get your food. Right now we serve, you wait in one line, you order, then you get a buzzer, then you wait again. We're taking that secondary wait out. We're gonna kind of give it a different flow, kind of like you would at MCL, if you will. You come in, front doors. If you have the ADA, you'll be coming in the back. So this is a ramp, and you will come in the back door. And you'll be able to circulate in through here. Through here will be some stanchions, and then you'll start here, and you'll go through, order your food. By the time you're done paying, you'll be walking with your food on out the door. We'll cut right in front of you. You'll see our completely open kitchen, so you'll be comfortable and whatnot. And then main dining here, ADA bathrooms, other stuff. Then phase 2 would be the second floor, which will have overflow dining, a small bar, and then our secondary exit will be coming out the top and coming down the side of the building.
Also offices.
Offices, bathrooms, and some storage. Now, when we first open after phase 1, we'll have like 78 seats, 76 seats in main level. Once we move to phase 2 and we open up the upstairs, we'll reallocate some of these tables and we'll go to more of an even split of 50 downstairs and 50 upstairs. That kind of way it balances out. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Do you guys want to have any questions on layout or flow with the restaurant or levels or applications for that at this point? Okay.
I thought I saw somewhere that the second floor was going to be for like special events or...
Just overflow, like if we have a family reunion or a birthday party, nothing big, no like big parties, no raves, nothing crazy.
So how many people would you account for, top floor?
Yeah,
It's not going to be a special event space. It's going to be seating and a bar.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just going to be additional restaurant space.
Okay.
If someone wants to come with their birthday party, it's not like we're going to rent the whole room out, right?
So if I
gonna-
wanted to rent it for a charity event or something, it's not that big?
as long as it stays under our
Yeah, we'd have to stay
50-person
within.
split.
Yeah.
I mean, we would make special, exceptions for that, but again, as long as we don't go over our number for
Okay.
upstairs.
And you serve food up there for guests?
Yes,
And a bar?
yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, and then hopefully, what we'll plan to do is hopefully have a dumbwaiter that goes from the kitchen to that second floor. So if you want last minute items, French fries or whatever, and you're upstairs, you can order at the bar and get some items sent up instead of having to go back downstairs, wait in line, and go back up.
Where's the access to the top floor then from the middle floor, from that middle one?
There's staircase,
Right.
a big
Oh,
wide
okay.
staircase, yep. Interior staircase, so. So we'll have that, and then there will be the secondary egress, exterior staircase for fire emergencies and that sort of thing. And there's already a door there. There's already a fire escape there, but it's, one of those New
Very
York style
scary, so we'll replace all of that.
with a ladder, so we'll replace
Mhm.
all of that so people can get out easier, so. It's just that, we're being forced to relocate, so right now we just have budgetary restrictions. So we're phasing out this project because we have to work with what we have to at least get open, and then we can make some money and then make more improvements as we go. So that's kind of where we're at.
The goal on buying the building and making that purchase is so our business can have a permanent home here in McCordsville.
Yeah.
We have, come to love the town. It's close to our house. We have a really nice commute, so to speak. It's, 10 minutes. And so we really love being here.
So we want to stay. So we're just trying to figure that out. At first, we thought we might try to go to the new town center, but with smokers and having all those apartments and residences right there, I just think that was going to be a good idea to have all that smoke flowing into people's homes. So we thought if we could stick to the side of town where there's less people and things like that to be concerned with, it would be better.
Plus
so.
we're tracks. We want to be on the railroad track.
That's true.
On the tracks.
Railroad tracks.
You got more exposure as well where
Absolutely.
that is.
Absolutely.
That'd be nice. We're excited. Okay. All right. So that's that's our special exception. That's our change of use. That's what we plan to do with the building. But if we want to go back to the site plan, this is kind of where,
The bulk of the variances will be.
because we're trying to maximize the space that we have, the land that we have. So the first part of that was that at first we were just going to purchase 6314. We did discuss with Eric to purchase an additional parcel for parking. With that additional parcel,
This
Yes.
here.
so it allowed us to work in 34 parking spots, which gives us the seating capacity for about 100 people. So we're gonna work within those confines based on our parking. But so this brings us to our first variance, which is, second variance. I'll start with the first one.
Okay.
Parking surface. Okay, so right now, the parking surface is currently packed gravel. So according to the code, it should be asphalt. We are seeking a temporary variance for this. We know the town does have future plans to work along the boulevard and do sidewalks, drainage, and green space. So we would like to revisit paving when that project occurs and pave in conjunction with drainage and other things that are happening with sidewalks and the city. So we're seeking a variance for the parking surface, although we do plan to do a concrete pad for the ADA and smoker, so this area here. This will be concrete, so that way there is good accessible parking for anyone in a wheelchair, plus it'd be right close to the ramps so they can get right out of the car and then get in the back door. So, plus smoker pad, so this will all be concrete, so we have some of our smokers on that side of the building, and mechanicals, et cetera, AC, electric boxes and all that kind of stuff, so. So that's our first variance request. Okay, second variance would be the number of parking spaces. So based on the number of parking spaces, that means we can have 100 people in the building, but that does not account for our employees. So we are requesting a variance for, those additional 5 to 10 spaces for our employees at this point. And then,
We do have written.
Eric has given us written permission to have some overflow parking on to the adjacent property, which we can work with Kim, but we would work that out with Green Touch and, of course, the barber shop in that regard. So as to where that one might be or where they would like for us to have those parking spaces. So that's number 2. Any questions on that so far? I'm feeling good? Okay. On to number 3. All right, variance number 3 is parking setbacks. So of course the code states that setbacks are required different amounts for each side of the property. Of course, we're requesting a variance from this code due to space restrictions in and around the property. Obviously, if we were to follow this code, we would not be able to achieve the required amount of parking necessary to accommodate our patrons and possibly some employees. So right now, with 100 people, right, we've got 2 employee spots, but then we need a few more, right? Okay. All right, that's number 3. Feeling good? All right. Variance number 4, sidewalks. Of course, the code states that we need to have a 5-foot sidewalk along West Broadway. And we are seeking a variance from this code because the town, in conjunction with sort of the parking surface variance, when the town is ready to do improvements along Broadway, we are more than happy to participate in that and do sidewalks, and we are going to leave space. So we have it sort of planned in here tentatively, but obviously this can change based on what the grand plan is for the town. But we do plan on eventually acquiring to those codes and having, sidewalks, grassy knoll, moving our sign back and some things like that. So that's number 4. All right. Questions on that one? All right. Variance number 5, streetlights. The code does require streetlights along West Broadway. So once again, we're just seeking a variance from this code to work in conjunction with the town when they improve West Broadway and put street lighting in at that point in time. Good there? All right, variance number 6, perimeter lot landscaping. So the code does require that you have perimeter lot landscaping for parking lots over 10 spaces. We are seeking a variance from this code so that we can maximize the amount of parking that we have. We will work with the town on future plans for curb cuts, sidewalks, landscaping as shown on the site plan. We can certainly put in a grassy strip right now if we need to, between us and West Broadway, just so people aren't pulling in there, just to create one entrance. Right now, it's a little willy-nilly. People can kind of pull in front of the building, they can pull in on the other side of the sign, so we're going to try to make it so there's only one point of egress into the parking lot to kind of cut back on those people, coming and going in different ways. All right, and variance number 7, interior parking lot landscaping. This code does require landscape islands or peninsulas for parking lots over 10 spaces, so we are seeking a variance from this code so that we can once again maximize the amount of parking spaces available. We do plan to use concrete parking stops to delineate parking at this point. So we will, along here, have those spots, have some along here, here, and also there. And of course, dumpster. So that is another thing, we have to make sure we have space for the dumpster on our property, so we've allocated a space back here for that, which should be able to easily be accessed from a truck from the side. Okay. All right, that's the variances. You guys got through it. All right. Any questions?
Questions on the streetlights? I mean,
Yes.
I'm not exactly familiar with how it sits right now. Is there lighting there already
There is on
There
the
is
building.
lighting.
on the building?
Yes.
On the
and I
exterior of the
believe-
building?
Yes, on the exterior of the building, there are wall sconces. It's all along the west side and the front. East side, there's not, and north side, there's not.
Okay,
And the sign has lights.
And, yeah,
Okay.
and the lighted sign.
okay.
So there's lights, they're just not along the street.
Now, you don't really know that there's lights along the west side of the building because there are all a bunch of crab apples all along.
Yeah,
the side
I
there.
saw that, yeah.
We're gonna cut all those out. Those,
Okay.
those are all coming out so we can maximize outdoor space for us and utilize those lights. We want
Okay.
those lights too.
Okay.
What is the planned timing of the different phases, like phase 1 versus phase 2?
Good question. So phase one, we have to have completed within the next year
Okay.
because our lease, whatever's happening in the building that
Yep.
we're currently in, our lease is technically up June of 2026. So regardless, the first phase has to be done by then, so that, of course, so we can get over and open. And then we would hope within the next year, to be able, at the most, to be able to get that second floor done.
As soon as we can get the fire escape done, we're like phase 1 will also include all of the fire detection and smoke detection and fire prevention for the entire building.
Okay.
It'll just be the egress from that second floor.
Which if it's in our budget, we will do that
We'll
sooner
do it
rather than
ASAP.
later.
I mean, we need to have the seating to maximize our profitability and, afford the build out. So it's not gonna lag. We're gonna try to do it as soon as possible.
I thought I heard you mention the trash dumpster access would be to the west.
Mhm.
So the property right west of that, who owns that property?
GT Real Estate.
So what happens if that property use changes, you don't have access to the west anymore?
We would move it to
We'll move it here.
And that wouldn't affect your parking?
I mean, it might,
It
but
might.
you know, at this point, Eric had agreed. Judge has given us permission to have the dumpster come in that way at this point.
And that's one of the things that we've got in our conditions is that petitioner secure an easement of some sort to access those, whatever, 10 or so parking spaces and the trash dumpster so that there is actual access to all 34 parking spots.
Okay, good.
And I
Good question.
believe right now, you guys are also using that trash.
Yeah, we pay for it and
Yep.
it's included in our rent.
Yeah. So, I mean.
So if we want to share, we can keep sharing if we want, or we just need to move it over a little bit.
That's what Eric said, that we just
Absolutely.
share it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got,
Is that a public right-of-way between the tracks and your building?
This year?
Yeah,
that's an old alley, correct?
not private
It's just like,
or-
it's just railroad.
It is an old alley and it is, I don't know how quite to explain that area.
Yeah, I was
To be
like-
100% honest, it is, it's obviously been shared by all the different users in this area for years. So it's kind of became a de facto alley, public alley, but some of the recorded legality of it, I could not speak to.
Looking at Beacon, it's like almost like it's in like an easement for CSX.
And frankly, there's gonna be different claims to it,
Yeah.
most likely.
Yeah.
So that is not something that we want to really touch as a town or BZA. We do not determine ownership. That is between private property owners.
It is interesting though when you look at it though, because as you go this way, the properties look like they extend up into the railroad, but then as you go this way, they sort of start to teeter down. So you know, it's hard to say like if that would actually be part of this property owner's space or not. But yeah, I mean, I think that you know, it's a great area. Right now, they seem to be just using it shared space.
Yeah,
So.
I agree.
Do we have any other questions from the board before we do a public hearing or go through Ryan's report?
What kind of hours are you going to be open?
Similar to what we have now, so Wednesday through Sunday, lunch and dinner. So we won't, even with the bar, we're not going to extend past probably 10
Yeah,
p.m.
no late nights. I like my sleep. I get up pretty early just to get the smokers rolling. We start usually between 4 and 5 a.m. So we don't want to be there super late. Our main clientele are families, and we want to keep it that way. That's not we're not big partiers. We want to just make sure that we're rounding out our services by having a liquor license, but our main goal is to keep it
Barbecue restaurant.
barbecue and families.
Yeah, so with the Scarlet Lane closing, it did create a little, that was a buffer for us. They were providing that service. And so now with them closed, we do have a lot of customers who are like, beer, where's the beer? We want beer, and so, of course, we're working on that right now. But in this space, we do want to be able at least to offer that. At least a two-way, we're going to maybe do a three-way. But it would just be like you would order your cocktail or whatever at the counter when you get your food, and then you get a buzzer, and then basically when your cocktail's ready, you go up to the window and grab your cocktail. So
Not
we want
not a place to sit and
yeah.
drink and
Yeah.
party. No,
It's not like a sports bar.
Just good food, good atmosphere, great place for families.
Maybe some music. That building does have that little stage upstairs, like it's like an old Masonic thing. So so that might be fun to have like a little band here and there. But yeah.
Acoustic, local guys. No.
Yeah, I don't know about concert.
No big concerts. No.
But it'd be good. It would be nice. So yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at.
Any other questions right now? Okay. Would you like to do the public hearing first or go through your report
Let's do
first?
public hearing
Okay.
and then
I'll go ahead and open it up to the public. If there are any members of the public present who would like to come up and speak, you can do so now. No? Okay, I'd like to note that there's no members of the public who want to speak, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Ryan, if you'd like to go through your staff report and some of the conditions that you've listed.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to kind of roll through and explain these. I think one of them, certainly the very first one, is exactly the question that Dan asked about the access to those other parking spaces. So yeah, one of our suggested conditions, these are all suggestions by staff, the BZA can choose to adopt these, modify these, adopt none of these, that is your decision. But first one being that there is, legal off-site access easement guaranteeing ingress, egress across this property, the property to the west, because it is the way the parking lot's situated. They would be sharing parking, or at least sharing the access to the parking and the trash receptacle. Number two, a public access easement. So right-of-way along Broadway has been a bit of a mess for decades. MnDOT purchased right-of-way at different times over the years, recorded that right-of-way at different times over the years, and it's not consistently been applied. So in many cases, we're left with what's basically a parent right-of-way. In other words, their right-of-way extends from back of curb to back of curb, and that's really it. So what we're asking for is a public access easement along the backside of their right-of-way up to 12 feet deep. That would allow the town in the future to go in and install other improvements. Those things that most likely would be streetlights and a sidewalk. And that's kind of, we'll come down to this later on, but we're actually in support of pushing the timeline out and allowing them to install that sidewalk at a later date. So number three, and the petitioner mentioned this, install curbing along 67. So this kind of goes in connection with getting more separation or a clear delineation from street to parking, right? So we want to get rid of some of that gravel. We want to get some grass in and create an actual curb line. And it's something we've been doing along the way with a few properties. So Culver's did the same thing. I know it's not a gravel lot, but you saw they put in a brand new curb along Broadway. We intend to, our plan is to continue to do this as projects come forward along Broadway to essentially parcel by parcel create a more attractive streetscape along West Broadway. So that was number three, was the curbing be extended across the property, other than obviously the curb cut for the entrance. Number four, have an apron at that entrance. So we are in support of the gravel staying there for a period of time, but we think it's going to be important that that entrance have a concrete apron just for the entrance part. You've seen those, most developments do them, whether they're asphalt or concrete or gravel or whatever, the entry part, and it keeps a lot of that gravel off of the right-of-way as cars are coming in and out. Number five, the landscape area. So again, we're dealing with properties that were originally platted in the 1800s. These are small properties. These were literally hand-drawn plats when the horse and buggy was the primary mode of transportation in McCordsville. Very old lots. A lot of it's old development, this building being one of the probably older ones in McCordsville. And so we do have to look at our normal setbacks, 50-foot front yard setback and 20-foot rear yard, are just not going to be feasible for redevelopment of these old parcels. So what we're requesting is a 15-foot deep landscape area from the back of the curb before their parking starts. Within that 15 feet would be their perimeter parking lot landscaping, the sidewalk, any streetlights that go in the future, and it creates what you'll see essentially is curb line, 5 or 6 foot grass strip, which is what we do in any of our neighborhoods today, 5-foot sidewalk. And you probably have room for about 3 to 4 to 5 more feet of grass and shrubs that form that what you're used to seeing in McCordsville, which is landscaping along the perimeter of the parking lot. So that creates some greenery, begins to set our streetscape. And a part of that number 5 is very long there. That's just describing our expectations for pulling out gravel, putting in topsoil to a depth that will support plant life in the future. We're just being very clear about expectations there. Number 6 is essentially the same thing, but it's applying it a 5-foot wide landscape area to the east side so that there's some clear stop between this parking lot and the parking lot to the east, and there's something that separates them in the form of greenery. Number 7, along the west building facade where the mechanicals and smoker are proposed, just to make sure that stays for those purposes. It's for the smokers, it's for any building HVAC equipment they may have that need to place there, but we don't want it to turn into the area that collects other stuff that we've seen occasionally with other businesses. Number 8, the freestanding light. So I think I confused folks with this comment. the town's in support of not requiring street lights, our normal standard street lights. They're required along Broadway, but we've been very consistent in that it doesn't make sense to require them for these small little parcels that we're doing small redevelopment projects along Broadway, because we need to have a consistent, uniform spacing of those street lights through the whole corridor. We can't do that when we're dealing with an 80-foot wide frontage, you know, and there's no other project around it that has any street lighting for hundreds and hundreds of feet. So we're essentially saying we're in support of not having a street light, but we do want some sort of a light at the entrance, a parking lot light that illuminates that entrance so that people are pulling in and out of there, especially in the wintertime when it's dark at 5 o'clock, there's some illumination there. And then, of course, the town in the future would go in within that easement that we're requesting and be able to install streetlights along Broadway in the future. This kind of gets us to that point. Their light gets us to that point. Number 9, the remainder, so this is where we get to the timing issue. And so I think petitioner certainly, after we get through this stage, welcome them back up to talk about this. I suspect they would probably like, you know, looser timelines. Staff has to have a clear expectation for a timeline. We can talk about what that is. Staff picked 2 years for both the parking lot to be asphalted and the sidewalk to be installed. There's no magic number to that, to number 2. It's just that we need to be consistent. And so we actually have another project that's coming through a different process, but that will be coming through some boards and getting hearings. It's requesting some similar things along Broadway. We have to apply consistency in staff recommendations. So our recommendation with this one, and it will be for that one as well, is within 2 years of a C of O being issued, the parking lot gets asphalted and the sidewalk is poured. Again, you certainly can take a different attack or different approach, is a better word, to that. That's just our recommendation because we need to maintain, from a staff perspective, consistency. Number 11, we just want the building to remain. It's a beautiful building. It's an older building. We'd like it to remain as is. We certainly don't want to prevent someone from making updates, making structural enhancements, things like that, but we believe the unpainted brick structure and as a whole is a beautiful building and want it to remain that way and be consistent with its historical style. And then the last two highlighted ones that are really hard to read on that screen are the 2 new ones. We did talk with the petitioner about this today. So the first one there, a lot of times we run special exceptions with the petitioner. We almost always, without question, run variances with the land because variances are affecting things that are built. They're tangible. There's infrastructure going in the ground. So you always run development standards with the land. We oftentimes run special exceptions with the petitioner because it's a land use. It's not a thing. It's land use. I don't know how to explain it. In this case, there's going to be a lot of investment inside the building to convert this into a restaurant. And so as we looked at it, we felt like it was appropriate to run it with the land, but we wanted to more firmly tie it to an eat-in restaurant as defined in our ordinance. And the reason being there is there are other, if we're not clear about it, we didn't want it to turn into later, not Trax, but Trax goes on to bigger and better things someday, and we get something that's more like a bar that has a higher turnover, that needs more parking, that we want later hours. We don't want this approval to allow that. So we're tying this special exception land use to an eat-in restaurant as defined by our ordinance, which we can pull out that definition, but it talks about basically food has to be served and it has to be at least 50% of your gross sales. And then 13, last one, is that we're requesting a limit of 100 seats, both inside and outside. We don't care if they're on the first floor or second floor, but 100 seats total, unless additional parking is secured. So if they were able to secure some in the future, we would lift that restriction. But that essentially, 34 parking spaces comes out to 102 seats. 102 is harder to remember. It's kind of an odd number. We prefer 100. It also kind of bakes in at least 2 spots for employees at that point in time. And at that point, with the fact that we know the town is working on some public parking in the area in the near future, we feel comfortable supporting the variance for what's probably amounts to 7 or 8 spaces. It's not a significant number. So we are very, very comfortable recommending all of the things that we talked about tonight with these conditions. And we're happy to answer any questions you have or the petitioner has.
Have you guys read over the variance or the suggestion conditions and
I just have one quick question, as in regards to the east side of the east side landscape. Is that in the front of the property along Broadway, or is that in that kind of gray area between the two properties where our building would be and their parking lot?
Yeah, we envisioned it kind of like right through here,
Yeah.
right in that area. And it specifically mentions that if there becomes an issue with the deed gap, this requirement's avoided.
Yeah. So,
I think,
there is, along their side of the building, there is.
Right.
And then the curbs house that they're kind of pushed over. We'll pull those back
Right.
to the edge of where our property line would be and 90 those out. So
Perfect.
there would be no questions.
Okay, so if the entrance light, so right now, we have where that sign is located, and there's electricity on that. I mean, we could just probably partner off with that, and like put a nice tall light on that, and then have that shine down right where people are pulling in.
if the electrician can make that work, that would be fine.
Okay, we
Yeah.
just shine down on that area where people are
We
pulling in.
want, we want some site illumination that, illuminates this area right here.
Okay.
There are cars pulling in and out at night, there's some illumination, both for, whether you're coming in or out.
For the board, looking at, sorry, I have to scroll through and see which one it was. Recommendation. Oh, number 9, talking about the parking lot and drive aisles paved within 2 years. Does the board have any questions, comments, concerns, or do we agree that 2 years is a
Can I
significant?
clarify that too? Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Our recommendation, again, please discuss this, is 2 years from C of
You
O.
vote.
So it does end up amounting to more than 2 years from
Yep.
today. You're probably talking at least 2.5 years, if not 3, probably, before. And so just wanted to clarify that,
Yep.
and then, yes, please discuss.
Yep.
And petitioner, if you have your own thoughts, please sort of jump up to the podium and engage.
I mean, this way, like,
I mean,
Is it part of your initial budget for that phase 1?
no.
No, okay.
No, and that's a significant cost. So
Sure.
what,
Yeah.
what we would really like to do would be 2 years after the certificate of occupancy on the second level, after phase 2, that would be okay.
Phase 2.
That's what we would ask.
So what happens if that second level doesn't get finished?
it'll get finished. We're not, I mean, like.
I've never not finished it. I've never not
It's a good
finished it,
question.
and I definitely would. But I mean, at that point in time, just tell us you want it done immediately.
Sure.
You could do 2 years from phase 2 and then put some sort of absolute
No later
sunset on
than
it.
XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or could we leave it at the 2 years like it is and give them the opportunity to come back and request more?
Absolutely. Could.
I like that.
It's probably a safer option. Okay.
Yeah, I like that suggestion, Grant. That's a good suggestion.
Do we have any other questions for staff regarding any of these suggestions or the variances? Okay. Remind me of administratively the order of operations here. So we have a special exception and the development standards variance. Which one comes first? If we have to approve.
Special exception.
Special exception.
Yeah, if you don't approve the land use, there's really no point in moving forward with the variances.
Okay.
So
If-
we do special exception first, and then if we're going to amend number 9 there, we want to make sure we're really clear as to what
Yep.
we're amending it to before we vote.
Okay. Let's go ahead and discuss number 9 in case we get there. So we had said that we were going to stick with approving it for 2 years upon the certificate of occupancy, but allowing the petitioner to come back and ask for an extension. We want to put any stipulations on that request or like a timeline?
I think you just ask for if you're not going to get there, you ask for an extension
Within like
within
30 days?
30 days of the,
of the date.
Or, I mean, we could also, there's not, well, if they come, there would be a meeting, but, yeah, I just think give them the opportunity.
Could we make
to
it so it's like
extend
town automatically can grant that, or is that something where they have to come back before us? Because that's something that sometimes hold people up too.
So what we've done in other situations, like so temporary signs, is the staff usually has the right to one administrative extension, and then after that, any future extensions would have to come through the BZA. So you could do something that says the condition is, within 2 years of the C of O being issued, obviously the first C of O, so that we're clear as where we start at, our starting point. And then allow staff to approve a 1-year extension. Any further extensions would need to come before, requests would need to come before the board and come within the board, before the extension request terminates. The staff is terminates. Yeah, something like that. We can word that better.
Okay.
but, yeah.
I like
got
that.
that?
Yeah.
You
good?
comfortable with that?
Okay. All right. With that, if anybody would like to make a motion on this, oh my gosh, special exception, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this special exception.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
That is contingent upon staff conditions of approval.
Continued. Contingent,
Gotcha.
that's the word I was
Thank
looking
you.
for. Contingent on staff conditions approval.
Again, second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then for the development standards, do we need to go through one by one, or can we do them collectively?
Well, since you're making you're modifying number 9.
9.
So 9 you need to do separately because you're changing it.
Okay.
The others you could do collectively if it's relying upon staff's
I
recommendations.
think she's asking though if each variance has to be voted on separately, not the conditions, but each variance. You can do it all at
Well,
once.
I think they could do them all at
Yeah.
once, but doesn't one of the variances require a modification of the conditions?
Yes.
Yes.
So
I think
that
just-
one has to be done separate because they're gonna have to, the language has to be changed.
Okay, and that
Change-
would be,
Change the language, and then a motion could be to approve all the variances contingent upon the modified commitments as discussed tonight.
Staff recommendation.
number, yeah, and then it's variance number 6, I believe. That is affected.
Are you,
It's variance
9.
Variance.
Well, variance 1, but it's commitment 9.
Okay.
what about number 10? Are you good with number 10 with the sidewalk part?
Let's review the rest of it a little bit. I believe so. It was the 15-foot.
It's the installation of the sidewalk within 2 years of C of O.
You don't
You don't
good
need
with
the
that?
same thing for the,
I mean,
It would be nice to have.
I see what you're asking. I see what you're asking. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that would have to go hand in hand, because.
Is the town good with that?
Yeah.
okay. Okay, remind me what, sorry, this is very complicated. So we need,
The two that had the 2 years from the C of O, we would be granting them
No, not the variances, the staff
Extensions.
recommendation, 9 and 10.
9 and 10.
so we need to make a motion on the,
On 1 through 8, and then 11, 12, and 13, and then redo the verbiage on 9 and 10.
I think what we would do is have a motion as to how you're amending 9 and 10, and
Okay.
then a motion to approve all variances contingent upon the modified commitments.
okay, perfect. Can anybody make a motion on amending the conditions on staff suggestions for number 9 and 10?
I'll make a motion to amend the staff recommendations on 9 and 10 to give staff the grant a 1-year extension, and then if needed more, it would have to come back before the board from the date of the C of O on phase 1.
I have a first, do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion on the variances contingent upon staff conditions.
I'll make a motion to approve the variances contingent on staff conditions.
with the amendments that we just made.
With the amendments we made on 9 and 10 also, yes.
Okay. I have a first, I have a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Sorry that was complicated. Thank you. With that, the next item on the agenda is BZA 25002 Star Financial's bank request for the extension of development standards variances.
Yeah, I will give a real brief presentation before the other Ryan jumps up and steals my thunder. So, Star Financial, I think everybody probably familiar with the location. It's where the ITM, not intelligent, it's interactive. Interactive teller machine is located. It's right there, just east of Mornings. If you've been there, the road that borders this on the side is now called Commons Drive. And that does lead back to McCord Square. So, this received, back in April of 2020, a couple special exceptions and a few development standards variances to allow the ITM essentially to go in before a primary structure was there, and then there was some specific things related to signage and allowing it, access around it, and a few things. That specific approval denoted 5 years. It lasted, it was good for 5 years. Then had to come back before the board with the idea that either a bank branch was built or they came back to you. But you specifically noted in your approval that they could request a 2-year extension. Well, they did so within that 5-year period and showed progress towards doing so, and that's what they are here to do tonight. So come on up, and I will pull up your site plans right there.
Evening, everybody. I'm Ryan McIntosh, MCINTOSH, and I'm a Star Financial Bank, and I handle our facilities and physical security for the company. So, as I've worked with Ryan, and going back 5 years ago, pretty much was right when COVID hit. So we did everything virtual.
Times, yeah.
It was a different time then. But again, we got an extension. We put our machine there to kind of start building our customer base, help our customers in the McCordsville area. And our ultimate goal is to build a branch. Over that time, we had a plan, which we built a branch in 17 and 18 in Noblesville. We built one in Muncie. And we had a plan then, and since then it's kind of changed. Banking has changed. It doesn't need to be as big, so we have changed it to even be smaller, which our most recent one was in Westfield. We built about 2 years ago now, and that's what this model more fits. And we've had to make some adjustments the way the workflow goes. We use the interactive machines inside the building, and so we haven't got to the point of really building it yet. So what we came into, we've got our architect who's here with us. We're committed to building it. We want to get started, hopefully maybe shoot for the end of this year. We still have to go through all the approval processes on that. Worst case, we start by the spring of next year and then be completed by the end of 26 at worst case. So we're just asking more for that extension to kind of give us that time so we don't have to just pull the machine out yet. Our ultimate goal is to use that machine during construction. We've kind of built it that way so we can continue to let customers use it while we're building next to it. And then as soon as that is completed, we would then remove that structure and have the machine more in the drive up like a typical bank would have. So we're just coming to ask for that extension at this point just to give us our period of time. But in the packet, you'll see our site layout, which we have. It hasn't changed much from when we first brought it to you guys on that. There's slight adjustments to that piece. And then I think you in there have some elevations, which that compares to what we built in Westfield slightly. And in Westfield, we had to put the drive-through in the back of the building. In this case, there's not enough space for that, so we have it on the side so you can see it from the road. And then I think just the interior of the branch, which that one we're still kind of tweaking a little bit on how everything lays out. So.
Do we have any initial questions from the board?
So you're saying where the ITM is now is not going to be, when you're done, it's going to get moved closer to the facility?
Yeah, so we'll remove that box. The machine's currently inside that.
Yeah.
There's a different style machine that would go right underneath the drive up in that first lane. it would be an island machine, much like you see in most
Sure.
banks at this time. So yeah, we'll remove that structure completely, just put in some landscaping and have
Yeah.
it there. And then we'll have the machine underneath there.
Okay.
So.
Looking at staff's recommendations, have you reviewed all of the recommendations from staff? and are in
Yes, and I
agreement?
think that first one was the one about removing, it wasn't notated, because it still shows in this document, but again, we would remove it after we're completely done with the new building. And then I think the second staff recommendation was more about the setback. I think we need a little more clarification on that. The 28 feet to a
Yeah,
foot.
28 feet from the right-of-way, and it said staff would like to further clarify that this requirement be from a future right-of-way line or pedestrian access easement.
Yeah, I think we addressed it in the number
Conditions of
5 in the
approval.
conditions, suggested conditions, is that NDOT's typically not been requiring dedication of right-of-way with projects along their roadway, so in such a case, we'd rather just see easement being given to cover the path. Fisher still owns the property, the easement just allows the path to be there and the public to transverse it, and then we would measure the parking from that. It just clarifies where we're measuring it from, because the right-of-way's not been dedicated and may not get dedicated. We would just measure it from that future pedestrian access easement dedicated to the town. That also means the town maintains the path in the future.
Yep.
So that you're off the hook there.
And we've already put that in. It goes
Yep.
to nowhere, but so much like a sidewalk to nowhere. But it's there, ready to go, and that we have nowhere. That we have no problem with. My concern is that you were going to ask for that parking to kind of go away, and much like they were talking, employees need a place to park, and we want being way in the back. It's not safe for sometimes them to walk all the way back there, so we try to have them use the front. So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? This is a public hearing, so before we go to the conditions of approval recommended by staff, I'd like to open it up to members of the public if anybody would like to come up and speak. I'll note that nobody has come up to speak, so we'll close the public hearing. Ryan, do you want to walk through your conditions of approval?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So number 1 is just that the branch receives a CFO by April 27th of 2027. I think that was the date that they had in their packet, so that was close enough to 2 years for us. Number 2, just clarifying that this does not constitute approval of design. It has to go through a process with the BZA, or with the ARC and the Plan Commission and TAC, and that has to meet all of the town's requirements. So really just more clarification on number 2 there. Number 3, this is really for the petitioner's benefit and clarification that one of the previous special exceptions was specifically for the drive-through, or excuse me, for the ITM, and we wanted to make sure that it's clearly denoted this now also applies to the bank branch, that, a year from now, the branch isn't coming in requesting, it seems silly, but we wanted to be clear that this applies not just to the existing ITM, but to the future bank branches, drive-through lane, and ITM. Also denoting that the 24-hour business allowance would also apply to that future machine, but not to any other kind of business operating on the property. So anything else, whether it's a bank or anything else, cannot operate between 11 and 6 except for the ITM. That this extension runs with this petitioner operating a bank or a credit union land use, and not with the land. In the event that this was that we talked about a second ago, in the event that additional right-of-way covering the path is not dedicated to NDOT, the town shall be provided with a pedestrian access easement for the path from the edge of right-of-way to 1 foot off the backside of the path. So essentially just going from wherever the existing right-of-way is today, the edge of that path, puts it in a public access easement, the town takes over maintenance of that path, and it assures the public that they can use the path for public use. That is it.
Any other questions from the board? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the extension of the special exception contingent upon suggested conditions of staff.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You're approved.
Just
Thank
to
you.
clarify, that
Yeah.
was for the special exception and the variances, previous variances.
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like the next item on the agenda is the annual training session.
Yes. We'll turn it over to Beth.
Okay. Okay, let me get my notes out. Most of you have done this for a long time, so this should be pretty straightforward, except for you, sir, but we've already met and talked. But any questions you have? So we're just gonna touch on some of the high points. Conflict of interest, it's built into the statutes with Board of Zoning Appeals. If you have a direct or an indirect pecuniary interest in any project that is before you, we have to announce that after the petition number has been called, and you must recuse yourself. You cannot participate in any communication, any dialogue, and certainly cannot vote. So spouse, adult children, somebody who has, if it's not your business that's out here presenting, but somebody in your family who you might somehow be interpreted to gain from this, please let us know. You are a quasi-judicial board, so in a way that you serve as judges sometimes. The reason that is important, there's also built into the BZA statutes that you are not allowed to have ex parte communication with any petitioner that we know, not just that has filed, but we know is coming. As quasi-judges, you make final decisions. You're not like the APC, who a lot of what the APC does goes before council, and they just make recommendations. They should also try to avoid ex parte communications, but you guys statutorily have to do it, because you don't want there to be any favoritism, any sort of perception of impropriety. So, pretty clear, straightforward. Don't talk about petitions that we know that are filed or coming. I say this in the nicest way possible, but none of you individually are important. 3 of you are needed in order to make any collective decision. That is important. If you get sued, just remember, if they name you in your individual capacity, none of you are important individually. There's 3 of you that are required for everything. That's more important if we know that 2 of you are going to be gone. It's typically a good idea to notify the petitioners, because when there's 5 of you here, they have a cushion, because only 3 of the 5 of you need to vote in favor. But if only 3 of you show up, it has to be unanimous, or the petitions would not pass. And I have seen before where petitioners will intentionally request a continuance because they just don't want to run the risk that one of you don't like the way they're dressed or smelled for the night. You decide to vote against them. So important to remember that you're not individually important. High level, what you do, and you saw it tonight, you guys know it, development standards and uses. That's what this whole entire thing is about. Development standards, what are the pretty things that we are going to require for all the projects that are coming in. We have zoning ordinances that dictate specifically what about everything is, whether it's landscaping or siding or setbacks. That's all zoning. If they don't like it, and they want us to make an exception to it, that's where they come to you guys and say, oh, pretty please, let us do something else. It's a variance of development standard. There are set statutory things that you're supposed to consider, which is what he identifies in the findings of fact. Findings of fact are obviously also statutorily required, because as a quasi-judicial board, anything you do can be reviewed and appealed to what we call big people court. So within 30 days, they can file something and we can find ourselves in court. If you guys acted arbitrary and capricious is generally the term that we have thrown in our face, that you just didn't like something for no reason at all. There was no factual basis for it. I don't think I've ever actually seen one of those stand, but it does exist. The other category, which I think is way more fun to talk about, is use. We have zoning districts. In our zoning districts, we allow certain things to happen and certain things not to happen. We don't necessarily want businesses in the middle of our suburbs, so we say certain areas can do certain things. I want to make an exception to that. I think that what I want to do on my property, I should be able to do on my property, then I can come here and ask for a special exception to do that use. Some communities call it a variance of use. It's basically the same thing. So we've done it tonight, so you know it. My only advice would be don't do anything arbitrary and capricious. Don't just suddenly start requiring that they paint their houses pink. We have no real basis for that, unless you can come up with a really good reason why everybody needs to do that. Not a great idea otherwise. The final category of things that I've never seen in my 14 months here, but I've seen in other communities. We can have the director or one of his code enforcement persons can make a decision about something, whether it is, signs is a big one, right? We talk a lot about signage, that someone, their sign violates, so I send them a notice of violation, or they are doing something without a permit, or we make a determination that the use that you're using your property for is not in compliance. There can be an appeal of that decision to you guys, and this is, again, where you serve as judges, and it is a full-blown trial. We've never actually discussed this. I don't know if I'd represent you guys or if I'd represent the town, but I can't be on both sides. But if I'm not with you, you would have legal counsel that would help walk you through. Otherwise, he would have legal counsel that would likely make his argument, help him make his argument. And then the landowner will have somebody who's likely arguing why his decision or one of his code enforcement officer's decisions was wrong. You guys hear the evidence.
One of those in my years here.
Not since I've been here, no. I had my big one, I had a sex shop in Noblesville. That was a fun one. You don't get to talk about that thing very often, and I got to talk about it in a public meeting with the media there. It was fun. But those do come up every now and then, and you do serve as quasi-judges in that. So the reason you want an attorney with you is not only to help kind of navigate procedurally, like whose turn it is and who gets to present evidence and how evidence is heard, but at the conclusion of it, you have to have, after you vote, we have to have written findings, because those can be appealed to big people court, and then we continue to litigate it. So that is like 10,000 foot view of what you guys do.
Got it.
It's fun and sexy, huh? It's cool. Of course.
Raise.
It's basically a bunch of people that are just whining, like, I want, pretty please let me do it on my property, I want to.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah?
Ryan?
Is that what you wanted me to cover?
Sure. I didn't hear how to move it. That's good.
She covered it.
All right, any
This
announcements?
is easy compared to APC.
So would you recommend, like, if someone came in here that was a friend, even though you had no financial
So,
interest in what they were doing,
there is,
Stay back?
there's case law out there that says it's not just direct and indirect pecuniary interest, but if you are so biased or prejudiced for or against a project that you cannot be objective, you need to say something. I mean, I found myself in situations before where, in smaller communities this is hard. People have called and said, this is like in my neighborhood, should I not? No, can you all know each other? Can you be objective? If you've been actively petitioning, like striking against a particular development that's coming in next door to you, you probably should not be voting on the project.
Yeah,
I've seen people get around that because they may not vote, but their spouse suddenly gets up and votes. That doesn't look good either. I mean, it's an honor code, but what we don't want to have happen is, because you're a separate suable entity. If the decisions you make, the lawsuits are not filed against the town of McCordsville. The lawsuits are filed against the McCordsville Board of Zoning Appeals. And so now you guys are now collectively in a lawsuit. And so it's in order to preserve the sanctity of the process. We don't want there to be a perception that something was done, unconstitutionally, illegally. I mean, there's certain other categories. Arbitrary and capricious is just the one you hear all the time. But yeah, if you ever have any concerns about that, I'm here to answer any of those questions, preferably before the meeting.
Yeah.
Call me and we can walk through it. So I'm not asking you all of these questions because that's uncomfortable for you and for me to have to pause a meeting
Right.
to ask you those. But yeah, if you are so biased or prejudiced one way or the other, you really should not be participating.
So you've got to really act as if, like myself, if I live in Noblesville and I have no contacts or I don't live in McCordsville, you've got to act as if you don't know anything around. You've got no contacts or any.
Well, we tell this to judges all the time. You don't have to like check your common sense at the door or like pretend like you don't know people. You don't have. But if it's, I have a project in mind where I can remember I had I don't remember if it was APC or BZA member, and this person had been remonstrating for years about development going in next door, and suddenly like this person's on the board and there's a petition that's before this person and everybody in the room knows that this member has been actively against development. So she might say, no, I really can be unbiased and objective, but everybody in the room knew that for 5 years before that she'd been totally against, like picketing against development. So more extreme. Or, again, it's a small enough community. What I don't want to have happen is Ryan call and say, so I know that Brian Hurley hates this guy. They've been feuding since high school. And if this person files a petition, Brian's never going to vote for it because he just really hates the guy. What do we do? Then I have to call you and we have to talk about it.
We only need 3 of us here, so that's good.
That's right.
He's not important.
Better you than the big judge.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, are you comfortable being put under oath and stating that what you did was fair?
I'm a child advocate. I spent half my life in
I
court.
know you do, but I'm just that scares a lot of. But when people ask me my opinion on something, generally the way I respond is, "You're the one that will be put under oath and cross-examined on your relationship to it, or how did you know, or who did you know, or what did you know." If you can do it, I don't have a problem with it. It's an honor code.
Yeah, I think the example that I think I recused myself on this. It was the solar panel in our neighborhood. My husband had signed the petition. They had to have so many signatures for
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so I recused myself from that. Even though I didn't, I was like, well, my husband had signed the petition for it, so I'm gonna go ahead and step back. So that was like an example of when I had to recuse myself. So that helps.
So you could have been intimidated.
Yeah. I wasn't, but yeah.
Should be intimidating, right?
Yeah.
She could have been, and I had that happen. The council member, or it wasn't a council member, the commission member or board member, I don't remember which board it was, she said, well, I don't know if I should say anything because it might sway other people's votes. And like, as an attorney, because they were up here, I turned around and I was like, probably best not. Like, let's talk about that before you just
Blurt something out.
say it, because I can't undo it. And people are litigious,
These on?
right? We're talking about, some of these are multi-million-dollar projects that if I have one person who's gonna try to undermine it, they're not afraid to sue, like the Lennars and the Arbors,
Yeah.
they're just not afraid to sue.
Yeah. Any other questions?
We're gonna be all good.
So nothing in April?
This didn't go out on YouTube, did it?
I don't know. You have this on YouTube? Why? Close the meeting.
You just assume everything's on YouTube. Just assume.
I know, that's what scares me.
I suspect there's no one watching.
Did I say anything inappropriate? Did I cuss and not know it?
No.
Or you did say sex shop.
That's a public
Okay,
meeting.
that's a public, yeah.
Adult
I'll go home
entertainment.
and pull it up.
All right, Ryan, any other announcements or anything?
Just a few quick ones. So no April meeting.
Okay.
Our next one is May. I believe it's May 7th, but it's the first Monday in May. I do have, I think, at least one item, if not two, that I suspect will be on that. They're not filed yet, but I think we'll have a May meeting. Number 2, our comprehensive plan is, I think, wrapping up. So Brianna and Brian saw it this month.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're bringing it back to the planning commission with some edits in April. And hopefully to the town council for final action in May. Assuming all that happens, then it basically becomes effective as soon as we record that. And we'll start using it right away. And we have put an RFP out for a unified development ordinance, which is essentially, we have today, we have a zoning ordinance, we have subdivision control ordinance. UDO is just combining those into one document, but in doing so, we're going to redraft them from scratch. Our ordinances are 14 years old. We've amended them 10 plus times over the years. They've just gotten a little choppy. They've gotten a lot of different authors have written things in them. It's time to kind of start from scratch, reevaluate our standards, and draft a new ordinance that covers both documents. And I think even we're going to address things like processes, see if there's things that we can process more efficiently, and really take a comprehensive look at that document and redo it. So, point being, once you guys be aware of that, that's probably a 9-month process. So it's probably early next year before that's adopted and effective. But at some point in time, we'll be seeing things with a whole new lens because they'll be completely different standards with different code sites. As we go through the UDO drafting process, we may reach out with questions of things, that you have seen frequently of. Should we change our standard on this because we've seen a lot of various requests for things like that. So more to come. I just want to let you know that they're close to adoption of the comp plan and we're going to start the UDO process. It will be lengthy, but I think really healthy for the town and for development as it continues to happen to us.
Your new hire? New hire?
Oh, thank you.
It's twice you've forgotten. Twice.
We have hired an assistant director of planning. So her name's Holly Kinker, currently works for the county, and she starts April 7th. So she will be here before your next meeting. She will most likely transition into taking over the BZA meetings and being the point person for BZA items. She does the county right now. I think she's going to be really good at it, probably far better than I, and we'll get her into that position here as soon as we can get her up to speed. You'll see a lot more from her soon. We're excited.
He's so excited he keeps forgetting it.
Yeah.
You're so excited you keep forgetting.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.